I'm gonna scoot my chair a bit. Looks like we're rolling. Looks like we are rolling. Welcome back, everybody who views the channel. Me and Jacob are back here in the midst of the off season. You haven't seen either of our faces for about 2 to 3 months, so it is kind of a weird time, seemingly, for us to come back. But it's about that time. It's about that time for off-season / preseason lists that we do. And despite our untimeliness with a lot of episodes in this year, as we haven't dropped many at all, y'all know we couldn't miss the list. Y'all know we couldn't, go without, putting the lists out, whether that be player positions or, preseason standings or awards. We got to get those off, anytime. So, Jacob, how you feeling, though? It's been a long time since you've been on here.
Feeling good. And been, we'll say it's been a while without hoops, but we did watch the Olympics some, had some not preseason, summer league. So we've had some hoops lately.
Yeah. And I just want to say shout out to Team USA, men's and women's, for taking home the gold. I was thinking about it myself, and I think that this year's Olympics, especially for hoops, was the most memorable in our lifetime, at least in my lifetime, as really when that 2012, 2014 team played. That was like the most memorable team, I believe, in my lifetime. I was still a kid, so I couldn't really digest all that was going on with it. Whereas with this team, you've got LeBron, you've got Curry, you've got Durant, possibly in their last Olympics ever, and putting together some pretty heroic performances, especially in the case of Steph Curry in those last 2 games. Marvelous stuff. It felt so good to root for Steph Curry too, which is something that I, had to admit, and I am a little envious of Warriors fans for that. But yeah, shout out to Team USA. It was a really fun time watching the Olympics. Shout out to the Serbian national team and the French national team too, because they put up really good comp in both of those games against Team USA. And I know, especially for that French national team, they're going to be a force for years to come with Wemby at the center of it all.
Right. Yeah. They. I know a lot of people thought the USA would kind of just roll through everybody, but there's a few, like against Serbia and France, there was a few scary moments that could have happened.
Yeah, shout out Guerschon Yabusele, too, new member of your 76ers.
Oh, yeah.
We'll see if he can. Yeah, we'll see if he can translate that to the NBA. He's been in the NBA before with Boston, but now he's with the Ops.
Yeah.
Anyways, though, y'all know what it is. Y'all know preseason lists at this point. We've done at least some variation of it the past 2 seasons. Whereas the first time, I think we did tier lists, and last year we did our top 10 rankings for positions. I went back and I watched the video that we did at this time last year where we ranked the top 10 point guards. Pretty interesting statements from both of us talking about some of the players on this list who may not be here this year. Our lists have probably changed a little bit since last year based on everything that's happened in the NBA season. And even I took into account Olympics. I took into account Olympic play as well.
I don't think
going into the season, if we're projecting a little bit, how players would play going forward. But I expect things to look different this year. I expect our list to look different. I know we say it every time, but I really do expect our list to be different from each other's this year, because we've got players we really care about on these lists for each of us. And not to say that biases will, take control, but it was a hard list to curate. It was a hard list to put together because there's so many deserving guys, especially at the point guard position, who you could realistically see in like the top 5 or the top 3 even.
Right. Yeah. Like I told you while we were doing it, making the list, the back half, like the 5 through 10, was tough. You can kind of see it in any order, but you just kind of got to nitpick with it, I guess.
Yeah, a lot of bargaining, a lot of negotiation going on. But Jacob, what do you say we just hop right into it, get into these honorable mentions, and let's get this ball rolling?
What do you mean?
We'll do it. Who are your honorable mentions before I mention mine? Because I have 2 names that were on my list last year in my top 10.
Really?
Yeah.
It doesn't feel right having one of these guys, but my honorable mentions are Jrue Holiday and Jamal Murray.
Okay, I have the exact same 2.
Yeah, and also a good start with different lists.
Yeah, I know.
Jrue could definitely be higher. He just kind of plays his role so well. Only, ask a little bit out of him, score every now and then. His main thing is defense. So you could definitely put him higher. It's just the other guys, you kind of got what they're responsible for. You just kind of got to put above them.
Right.
I guess same with Jamal Murray. I know you're more of a Jamal Murray guy. I'll let you talk about him, but he's same thing.
I guess I'm a Jamal Murray guy. I guess more so than you, at least.
Yeah, more so than me. Yeah.
But yeah, I agree with what you say about Jrue Holiday, and I tried to find a place to put him on this list again, especially since he's coming off of an NBA championship where he played such a pivotal role in the playoffs, especially in the Eastern Conference Finals and in the final series against Dallas. He's coming off a gold medal as well, playing with Team USA. So it was really hard for me to leave him off this list last year after having him on there the year prior.
Yeah.
But I think if you just look at counting stats, he only averaged 12 points a game last season. Whereas pretty much everybody on this list outside of one guy averaged 25 or more. So I had to take that into account. But obviously we know Jrue Holiday's impact is not strictly limited to his counting stats. It's so much larger than that. And the same thing with Jamal Murray, like you said. Hard to leave him off this list as well. I had him as high as number 7 on my list last year going into the season. Obviously, tough being knocked out in the second round in 7 games by Minnesota. The playoffs. He did not have a great series against Minnesota. Had the game-winning shot against the Lakers. Had that, iconic moment, I suppose. But we know what Jamal Murray's going to do. He's not going to flash you with his, numbers as well. 20 points, 5 assists, 4 rebounds in the regular season. But we know playoff time, he ramps it up. We know about Jamal Murray at this point. But for me, especially with them getting knocked out in the second round, it was not enough for me to warrant him being over anyone else on this list going into 2024, 2025.
Yeah, like I said, you have a case for both, but just the other guys above them, kind of hard to leave them off.
Yeah, for sure. I'm going to start with my number 10. I want to talk about my number 10 first. I'm interested to see if you have the same guy here because this was a guy I was a lot higher on last year. I had him in the top 5 in my list last season. Probably shouldn't have, but that's Trae Young. I've got Trae Young at number 10.
He's my number 10.
He's your number 10 too? Well, I seriously considered he was the guy that I was like, can I leave Trae Young off this list in place of Jamal Murray or Jrue Holiday? And I really tried to. I tried to find reasons to. Obviously, the Atlanta Hawks were not a great team last season. Trae Young is going to be without DeJounte Murray going into this next season. The Hawks project to be even worse going into 2024, 2025. And a lot of a burden is placed on Trae Young to be the guy on that team again by himself. But I couldn't leave him off the list. He had a statistically better year than he did the year before. 26 points, 3 rebounds, 11 assists. His efficiency was better. He averaged fewer turnovers, albeit he still averaged 4.5 turnovers.
Yeah.
Where I think when you look at it, he's a guy who's going to, pass the ball a lot with 11 assists. His assist-to-turnover ratio was better, so that was the biggest thing for me. I mentioned that going into last season. If he could improve on that in his efficiency, I expect Trae Young to be pretty solid. And I think he was still solid, especially towards the end of this past season. He put together some solid games. He had a pretty tough stretch shooting the ball to start the season, but with the other guys on this list and how they played, I couldn't put him any higher. And just based on how good he is and how good I think he projects to be going into this next season, I think his counting stats will obviously be better without Jamal Murray. We could see a trade. I've kind of, insinuated that for a while now, potentially San Antonio or, whoever else at this point. I think we could see a Trae Young trade in the future, but I've got him at number 10, and it wasn't hard for me to leave Trae Young at this low on the list going into the season, despite having a statistically better year.
Yeah, he's a guy I kind of almost had higher, but even projecting with this year, the Hawks are going to be really bad. That's kind of the main thing. You know what he does: play, make, shoot. The turnovers I wish would go down, but the way as much as he passes, you're right. It's not really. It's going to happen. With the lobs he throws to Capella or whoever's rolling a lot of times in pick and roll. But it was really hard not to put him higher for me. I think he was for sure going to be on my list, but it's just where on the list because kind of how bad they're going to be next year.
Yeah. Let me ask you this question before we move forward. Would you rather have Trae Young or Jamal Murray on your team?
Oh, as build around or just as a guard?
Just however you want to gauge it. Because I tried to take that into account as well to like try to give, Jamal Murray more of a benefit of the doubt.
Right. Oh, man. I might go with Jamal Murray. Just he is bigger than Trae Young, so he's not as much as a defensive liability. But I think the playmaking is better with Trae Young. But I think I'd go Jamal Murray just for the defense aspect of it.
I don't like speculating what ifs and like hypotheticals sometimes when it comes to this. But I can't help but think, like, what if Trae Young was playing next to Jokic and Trae Young had Jokic to, bounce off of? I think both of their playmaking is obviously out of this world. And I think Trae Young would benefit in a huge way playing alongside Jokic. Whereas if you put Jamal Murray next to Clint Capella, he doesn't fall off a cliff really, but
it's a lot different.
It's Jokic versus Clint Capella. So
yeah. That's why I was like, is it kind of like franchise player or just kind of to have? So I kind of guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Number 9. I want you to go first here at number 9.
My number 9, I have feels wrong. That's why I have Damian Lillard at.
Wow.
Yeah, I told you, I was like, you might not like where I have him. I know you're going to be a lot higher than I am, rightfully so. But he averaged 24 points last year, 4 rebounds, 7 assists, shot 42% from the field, and 35 from 3. His 3-point production went down a little bit versus last year before, but that's kind of expected going from Portland to Milwaukee. He kind of didn't have to do as much when him and Giannis were together. Even Chris Middleton, Brook Lopez at points. His numbers were good. I'll say that.
It was a tough year for Dame. I can admit it was a tough year for him.
It was a tough year coming off of injuries. Like you've said before, new team, new place to live, where he's been at Portland his whole career. And I hate putting him this low because I was thought about putting him at 10, but I think projecting, I think he will have a better year.
Hurting my soul.
It's just the age factor and how he kind of looked last year at times. Just like, will he regress anymore or just kind of still be at that, I guess I'll say all-star level. Maybe All-NBA kind of a little bit if he can get back to that. I don't know if that's kind of too far gone yet or not. But I just didn't know where to put him. Like I told you, it was kind of hard figuring out where to put him at just off of last year, which he stats-wise wasn't a bad year. Just watching him kind of just felt like it was a bad year for him.
Yeah. It was a rough year by Dame standards, especially coming off a year where you averaged 32 points. Yeah. I came into last year, saying that Dame and Giannis could average 30 points. And, Giannis did, but Dame, obviously getting implemented into the offense, that was probably a very premature, thing for me to say.
Yeah, I think we both had him at 4 last year going in.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah.
We did.
It just feels weird him being this low.
Yeah. And I can't go as low as 9 with him. Maybe part of personal bias is involved with that. But yeah, it was a rough year for Dame. I'll touch a little more on him once I get to him. He's not my number 9.
Yeah.
In fact, my number 9 is Tyrese Maxey. My number 9 is Tyrese Maxey. I didn't expect you to have him that low. Obviously, that being your guy. Tyrese Maxey had an incredible year last year, and you've been, very high on Tyrese Maxey for some years. And I think last year was the year we finally saw him break onto the scene in a big way. He was an all-star, had the series against the Knicks where he had the big Game 5. He had some iconic moments in that series. Counting stats, 26 points, 4 rebounds, 6 assists, 45 from the field, 37 from 3 on 8 attempts. Tyrese Maxey was really, really good. Definitely benefited playing alongside Joel Embiid, but even without Joel, he was still really good and held serve and kept that Sixers team afloat where they didn't miss the playoffs, even though they had to go through the play-in, even though they fell that far. But Tyrese Maxey was great. I did not expect him to be this good when he came in the NBA. Very, very electric. He's a guy that can get hot in a hurry, We saw that last season. I remember that game against Utah where he went for 50, where he was just making everything, it seemed like, especially in the first half. Yeah, having him at 9 does seem a little weird, especially after the way he finished last season. I am kind of projecting with this one, though. I will say I am kind of projecting. He has, 20-point per game scorer alongside him and Joel now with Paul George. So maybe we see the, numbers take a little bit of a dip. I don't expect his, production just offensively, despite the numbers, to take a dip, though. I expect Tyrese Maxey to only continue to get better. You've talked about his defensive potential. I think it's there, too, after seeing what I saw last season.
Yeah.
And his biggest strides for me were as a playmaker. As a playmaker, I think he was really good last season.
Yeah.
He exceeded my expectations that I had for him. I had him on my shooting guard short list last year. He didn't make my top 10 shooting guard list.
I know he was top 10 on mine. I just forgot where I had him at.
Yeah, I think he's number 8 for you. I think I went back and I watched and he was number 8. But yeah, the transition from combo guard to point guard for Tyrese Maxey has been really cool to see. I expect him to have another good year. I expect the Sixers, we'll talk more about that down the line, but I expect the Sixers to be really good because of it. But yeah, I can only put him at 9 for now. But he's trending upwards for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll talk about more about him when I have him. I do have him a little bit higher. You want to go with your 8 or my 8?
You can go with your 8 first. We might have the same guy here.
We might. This is why I have De'Aaron Fox.
I have De'Aaron Fox too.
Feels low a little bit after. I believe you said his stats were better this year than last year.
They were.
And
Counting stats were better. Efficiency was better.
They were the 3 seed the year before?
Yeah.
I think so, yeah. He averaged almost 27 points, 4 rebounds, 6 assists. My biggest thing with De'Aaron Fox is I think I told you it doesn't feel like he attempted almost 8 threes last year.
Not at all.
And he shot 37% from 3. About 37%. So it kind of, and he also had 2 steals. So it's weird with him playing alongside Sabonis, who can actually run the offense some too. But just he's vital to that team, especially if they do want to. I know we'll talk about the West later on, but in a tough Western Conference, him being this good or even as good as it was last year, it's hard for him to even be able to lead them to maybe even a top 5 seed. I mean, it could be happening. It's been done, but just with De'Aaron, my biggest takeaway was his shooting has gotten better year by year. I know that's always been the biggest thing against him. And like I said, 8 threes, when I was going through the list, it really surprised me after how good he did shoot last year. Because it just feels like he doesn't shoot them. It feels like he just kind of either goes to the rim or just at mid-range. So, I don't like him being this low, but even projecting just the guys above him. And even if he has a better year, it's just kind of hard to see him better than the other guys. Well, there's a case, but, just even with Trae Young, just how tough that conference is, kind of where they're going to finish at.
Yeah. Yeah, it was weird for me too. Especially, I think a big part of it, the more I kind of dove into it, I think a big part of him feeling like he wasn't as good the year before, even though he had a statistically better season, was him being the clutch player of the year before. And so we saw a lot of big moments with De'Aaron Fox where he, showed his best in the highest leverage moments. So I think that might have played into it a little bit. But yeah, it really doesn't feel like he had that much better of a shooting season if you just go off the eye test. But the stats say otherwise. And, we're not Sacramento Kings fans, so maybe we didn't watch as closely as others. Others might, disagree with what we've been saying. But De'Aaron Fox still looked really solid last season. He still could have very well been an all-star. He still had put together a really good season. Was he an all-star?
This past year?
I don't think he was.
I don't think so.
No, doesn't seem like it. But the Kings were 46-36 last season. The year before, they were 49-33, only 3 games better. And this year, they were the 9 seed. And the year before, they were the 3 seed, which just shows you how stacked the Western Conference was, especially at the top last season. And I think, like you said, the same can be applied for the point guard position, where we see a guy like De'Aaron Fox and even a guy like my past guy, Tyrese Maxey, who have better seasons, but it just doesn't warrant them moving up super high on the list, at least for me, because you had other risers rise so much more. And that's no knock against them. They're, have more of a linear progression, I guess, which is not a bad thing at all. It just goes to show how much competition there is, especially at the top. And De'Aaron Fox is still very young. I think he's like 26 or 27 at this point. He led the league in steals per game last year too, which I think shouldn't go unnoticed. I know a big knock on him has been his defensive production before. And even though steals don't equate to defensive production in totality, I think it was a big thing for him. But I don't know how to project De'Aaron Fox going forward.
Yeah.
Because I think we've seen him make this jump now, and I don't know what the next jump is for him. So I couldn't project him being much better than he is now. Yeah. I think that is a big part of it. But where he is now is fine. I don't think there's much that he could do by himself to make that Kings team better. I think, it will be based on what's put around him. And DeMar DeRozan will be there now. So it'll be interesting to see how those two mesh with Sabonis in the center as well. So, yeah, it's a weird fit. It's a weird fit to me still, which will – I think they'll rely on De'Aaron Fox to shoot the three a lot again with, DeRozan not shooting the three much and obviously Sabonis not shooting it much. So we'll see. We'll see what De'Aaron Fox has in store. I had him at my 8 last year. He's still at my 8. Yeah, better season from De'Aaron Fox statistically.
I had him at my 7 last year, so I kind of just moved him back one spot. Him and Keegan Murray might average 10 threes a game.
Maybe so. That would be crazy. De'Aaron Fox 10 3-point per game attempt arc would be insane. I'll go ahead and talk about my number 7 though, because this is where I have Dame. I don't have him. I couldn't go any higher. I tried to go higher with him, but yeah, he just had a really bad statistical season by his standard. 35% from 3 for Dame is like yucky almost. And sure, it's on like almost 9 attempts, but despite fit, despite all of the turmoil that the Bucks had last season, he just wasn't great. He wasn't great by his standard, which I don't blame him for. Obviously, he had personal things going on outside of just being a member of a new team, halfway across the country. And I don't think that he was able to really benefit from playing alongside Giannis like we thought that he would. And I think a lot of that is schematics. I'm interested to see how their duo progresses going into the second season, the first full season under your favorite head coach of all time, Doc Rivers.
I might Dame just for having to deal with Doc Rivers, but go ahead.
But I like him. I like him to have a little bit of a shake back year, even though he is getting up in age. I like his stats to go back up at least a little bit. I don't think he'll be a 30-point per game scorer anymore as long as he's on the Bucks. I think I was very premature in saying that and projecting that for him. But he doesn't have to be that. He doesn't have to be that anymore. I think the biggest thing with him will be his efficiency and his, I guess, insertion into the offense.
Yeah.
Of that Milwaukee Bucks team. And even though they were the 3 seed last season, it didn't seem like it. It really didn't seem like they had a great year. Right. But you expect Giannis to be Giannis, and I think if Dame is better, the Bucks will be a better team because of it. That's kind of how I gauge it. But I couldn't go higher than 7 for Dame. As much as he is still my guy, I couldn't do it either.
Yeah, dealing with Doc Rivers, they're not going to play a whole lot of young guys. I know they will eventually, like a lot. So he is going to rely on Dame and Giannis a lot, even Chris Middleton. So I think the production still could be pretty high, even if you don't want it to be. Just kind of keep him healthy, and like I said, he is getting a little bit older. Just keep him healthy and ready for the playoffs. Just trying to rely on him too much. But with Doc Rivers, his game plan, it might end up being like that. Just rely on him and Giannis a lot.
Probably so. You know him better than I do.
Yeah, sadly. I wish I didn't.
You got a 7.
My number 7, this is where I have Tyrese Maxey.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Let's go a little higher.
I really thought about going higher. You kind of mentioned it. He kind of got thrown into the point guard role last year. Well, he's done it before, but I think full time he kind of got thrown in it last year, and he really did better than expected. His assist to turnover ratio was really good first half of the year. I think it dipped off when Joel got hurt. Um, but the production might go down a little bit bringing in Paul George, but I think he's still going to have the ball in his hand a lot. Even that I've seen stuff saying Paul George might run the point some, so Maxey can get those open catch and shoot threes or off ball screen threes, and I'm fine with that. Like I said, I think another playmaking jump will be there. I think they have a better roster this year. Get into that later. But my biggest thing I've been telling you is a defensive jump because he has improved every year. I know last year was the playmaking. The year before that was the 3-point shooting. I think it's the year for the defensive jump. He's shown flashes last year. He gets a chase down block occasionally. But his hands were really good last year. There was a few games against Boston, and even in the Knicks series, they were targeting him, but he had a few good moments where he had some good stops. But yeah, I don't think he'll regress any. I think his stats will stay the same, most of the same. Might not average 25, like you said, but it was kind of hard for me to not put him any lower. Even kind of higher, it was kind of hard for me. I know I talked to you about it a little bit. Just having Joel there does take a lot of pressure off of him. So if Joel wasn't there, even when he didn't play, he still played good, but you could tell the difference. He had a lot more on his shoulders, and he wasn't as efficient as with Joel there.
Yeah, that's a big reason I couldn't go higher with him too. It's also a big reason why Jamal Murray didn't make my list.
Yeah.
Because of the guys they have in the middle taking up so much of the attention. And that's no knock against them. That's just kind of the circumstances. One more question before we move on about Tyrese Maxey. Do you think he's an all-star again next season? I wanted to ask you that.
I do.
Think so?
I do. Was there any guard that came to the East from the West? I don't think so.
I mean, outside of Dame, I can't think of any notable ones at least.
Yeah, I think he'll be there because I think they'll think they'll be toward the top of the standings again.
Unless Malcolm Brogdon takes it from him.
Yeah, yeah. But yeah, I do. I think so. It'd be kind of hard not to, just because a lot of the guards are in the West, like a lot more better guards in the West. So yeah, I'll say yeah.
I think so too. I think he'll make it again too.
Like I said, I really think the defensive leap is there. I know he got drug tested for posting a picture. He looked big. So it's coming. I think it's coming.
He was on my All-NBA third team, Tyrese Maxey was. I know he didn't make it. I thought he should have made third team.
Yeah.
Number 6, though. I want you to give your number 6 first. This is interesting. 4 to 6, I'm very interested in.
This is tough. This is why I have Tyrese Halliburton.
I have Tyrese Halliburton, too. I really wish you wouldn't have.
Yeah, this is tough. Because I was back and forth between him and Maxey a lot. I know I told you about it, but what it came down to is Tyrese Halliburton runs the offense for Indiana. Tyrese really doesn't. It goes to Joel first. That was the biggest thing. They had one of the best offensives last year. I think all time last year. And he was the point of that. He still shoots well. I know the shot isn't pretty, but goes in, so he can shoot, play make, especially when they got Siakam. Kind of really did it. I know was it the hamstring injury where I think it was the hamstring injury. He kind of fell off of the playmaking a little bit. I mean, that's expected. But it felt weird having him this low because of how well he was last year. But the guys in front of him, I just think that whole offense relies on Halliburton. And I know McConnell has his moments of when he can run it, but it's totally different with Halliburton out there.
No, yeah, Tyrese Halliburton is my number 6 too. I'll just give counting stats for him. 20 points, 4 rebounds, 11 assists, 48 from the field, 36 from 3 on 8 attempts. But yeah, you said it. He's the engine that makes the Pacers go.
I forgot about stats with him and Maxey, but yeah.
Yeah, but Tyrese Halliburton, he is the engine that makes the Pacers go. He led them to the Eastern Conference Finals last season. And I think we're going to see more and more of this where we see just how much Indiana Pacers role players benefit playing alongside Tyrese Halliburton. I think we saw it last season with Andrew Nembhard towards the end of the season. We saw it early on in the season before he got hurt with Benedict Mathurin. We saw it with Aaron Nesmith.
Yeah.
Obi Toppin has been good for them, and obviously Siakam and Miles Turner too.
Yeah.
But Tyrese Halliburton just elevates the Pacers to a level that they have not been at in a very, very long time, ever since the days of Paul George. And it's really fun to see. He leads a very fun brand of basketball. He works really well alongside Rick Carlisle.
Yeah.
I think defensively he's got another jump he can make as well.
Yeah.
I don't expect him to ever take like a big scoring leap, just because I think he's pretty nestled into his niche offensively. And like you said, the Pacers were one of the best offenses of all time last season. I don't think they need anything else from him offensively. I think they're completely fine offensively. I think defensively he could kind of tap into kind of the same thing some of his teammates have done, some of those guards, and really dig in on the defensive end. I don't think it'll take away from him offensively too much. Assist to turnover ratio is another big thing with Tyrese Halliburton too. He's very good in assist to turnover ratio. Which when you see like high assist guys, like we mentioned Trae Young before, Tyrese Halliburton is way, way better at it than Trae Young is, which I think is a very, very cool thing to see. He's a good 3-point shooter despite having that weird jump shot.
Yeah.
We mention it almost every time. He's technically a gold medalist as well, even though he didn't play very much at all. But it was cool for him to have that experience on Team USA with some of those older guys. But yeah, I really wish we didn't both have him at 6. I was really hoping you would go higher with him.
Yeah. I told you.
He sat at my 5 for the longest time.
Yeah. I thought about it. I was real close to doing it. Like I said, I've texted you before, and I was like, I wonder how much our list will kind of be the same. I know we've said it, or be different, but I really almost had him higher. Like I said, the back half, like the 5 through 10 was tough for me.
Yeah, me too. At 5.
Okay.
You tell me just the name, and then I'll tell you the name, and then we'll get into it.
I wish I had him higher, but it's where I have Ja Morant.
I have Ja Morant too.
Yeah. Not much to go off of last year. He played 9 games. But he did average 25 points, 6 rebounds, 8 assists. I think the knock of Ja still is the shooting, which it has gotten better every year. I know it wasn't good last year, but 9 games, not really much you could do. Yeah, just I don't know with Ja. It's kind of weird because we've seen what he can do, finish the ball well. Like I said, the shooting is a lot better than it has been before. That's always been a knock on him. But I've seen people try to kind of compare how he runs Memphis's offense versus Tyrese Halliburton does Indiana's, and it's just the play style is kind of different.
It is.
Like just the role players are different. How Memphis kind of wants to play is a little bit different.
Memphis doesn't have Miles Turner. They have Jaren Jackson, which is kind of close, but
yeah,
Memphis has always had like that interior force up until this point that Ja Morant has played with, like Steven Adams, Valanciunas.
Right. So, but if I say he is coming in healthy because he has had basically a whole year. I think he just started on court stuff a few weeks ago. But it just kind of felt weird putting him this low, but it was kind of hard to off of him playing 9 games last year. And even projecting, we know he is a top 5, 6 guy, kind of wherever you think he is. You can nitpick and choose, but projecting, I think he's 5. He could even be better. He could even be 4, but it just kind of depends on how he comes back from that injury.
I think Ja Morant, if we're strictly projecting, is going to be a top 3 point guard at the end of the season.
I can't do 3.
I think he's going to make his way into the top 3. I think he's going to have a really good bounce back season. At least I'm hoping he does.
Yeah.
You mentioned the numbers on a 9-game sample size. I don't take too much into account with that, especially with the 28% from 3. We know he's a better 3-point shooter than that. Right. I think if he can be a league average 3-point shooter at like 34, 35%, I think he has all the makings of all NBA caliber season, all NBA like second team caliber season.
Right.
The one like drawback that I have is the fact that we don't know who the center of the Memphis Grizzlies is going to be. And a lot of Ja Morant's success in the past has come off playing pick and roll with the center, whether that be Steven Adams or whether that be Valanciunas. He obviously does it with Jaren Jackson and Brandon Clark too.
Yeah.
But how much of an impact will Zach Edey being there have? How much will Zach Edey play? Some people
Yeah.
project him to be a starter. Some people, don't.
I think he will start, but even in the summer league, he didn't play a whole like he played a lot, but he didn't. Like he'd have game by game rest. I think being Zach Edey's 7'4",
Yeah.
something like that. I don't know how he will. I know he'll translate pretty well. I think I said that around the draft. I think he will translate it better than a lot of people say. But if they do try to keep him healthy and he doesn't play, every game, or he's like on a minute restriction, who is that center? Like you said, will it be Brandon Clark at a small ball 5? Will it be Jaren?
Will it be somebody else they go out and get?
Yeah, so that's like the whole, like you said, Miles Turner and Jaren is kind of different. The center's kind of different. So it's like kind of just projecting of how the center will look. Because like you said, he's always had Steven or Valanciunas there. So, yeah, I don't think I can do the top 3 like you can. I can for sure say 4 or 5. I just can't do 3. If it happens, I wouldn't be surprised. It's just I don't feel that high about it.
Yeah. The reason I think Zach Edey will get pretty good burn in his rookie season is because Steven Adams and Jonas Valanciunas are very, very good screen setters. And so is Zach Edey. If there's one thing Zach Edey will be able to come in and do right off the bat, it's set screens, get rebounds, and block shots. So he can do that right off the bat, and that's very beneficial to how Ja Morant plays, getting to that mid-range, getting to that floater, getting to the rim. Also, a point that I mentioned going into last season that we didn't really get to see as well is Ja Morant and Marcus Smart in the backcourt together. I'm very interested to see how those two pair. I'm interested to see how those two pair on the defensive end. I'm interested to see how they kind of take on matchups, take on assignments. Obviously, we know Ja Morant is not not known for his defense. And as I mentioned going into last season, maybe Marcus Smart's presence being there, helps out with that, in a way that Dylan Brooks never really did, because he was playing, forwards and guards, and you don't project Marcus Smart to play, forwards and guards. You expect him to take on the perimeter matchup all the time. But yeah, I think Ja Morant's going to have a really good season. I hope he has a really good bounce back season. I couldn't go any higher than 5 either, though, just based on what we have seen and kind of the uncertainty that still is there with the interior of the Memphis Grizzlies. I think just him, though, he's going to have a really good statistical season. The Grizzlies are going to be a top 6 seed in the West, and I think he's going to be good.
Yeah. I know he's had his injuries, but they're normally never that bad like it was last year. So
no,
it was kind of just weird last year. Yeah, so I think he will have that bounce back year.
Yeah. 4. Tell me your 4.
This is where I was really curious about between these two next out. I think my 3 and your 3 and 4, but my 4 is this is where I have Jalen Brunson.
I have Jalen Brunson too.
Projecting for next year, it kind of really Jalen Brunson's stats. He had almost 29 points last year, 3 rebounds, almost 7 assists on 48% from the field, and 40% from 3 on 7 attempts. Projecting, they did get a lot. They did get better, and you got Julius Randle coming back. They added Mikal. Do you think Randle will take any touches away from Brunson? I know he will some, but to an extent where he will.
I don't think he'll be any more than usual. I don't think it will be like an egregious amount compared to what it has been in the past.
Yeah. Mikal
Bridges, it'll be interesting to see if he like reverts kind of back to an offensive role like he had in Phoenix, maybe.
Yeah. I don't know if Mikal will do that. He could, but with Brunson, he was like the reason they were so good last year. That's kind of obvious, that leap he had, which we kind of knew it was coming. I think you left him off last year. I know I had him at. Yeah.
He wasn't an honorable. Well, yeah, he was an honorable mention, but he wasn't in my top 10.
I think he was my 8 or 9 last year, maybe 10. But I mean, I don't think anybody expected him, except maybe Knicks fans, to be this good as he was this year. And obviously, we saw that in the playoffs. Versus Philadelphia, that was a really great series. And he struggled the first 2 games, but Josh Hart turned to Curry for 2 games, and stuff like that. But he kind of led them, and it showed. The only thing I have with Brunson, which I don't know if you kind of want to look at it this way, is how will Thibodeau kind of. We know he's going to play his guys close to 40 minutes a game, if not more.
Yeah.
Will it kind of wear down in the playoffs again like it did this past year? And I know he got hurt, and I don't think it was because of the minutes, but, they brought in OG, who I think he played close to 40 minutes, and he got hurt. That's kind of my biggest thing with him is how will he kind of fare throughout the whole year playing so many minutes again. I think the numbers. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say I don't think it will affect him that much, just because of how deep their guard and like wing rotation is. I think if there's anybody who's gonna be worn down, I think it's gonna be interior guys because they don't have Isaiah Hartenstein to lean on anymore. The current makeup of the team, at least, that's where I see that coming into effect. I don't think it'll really affect Jalen Brunson, especially since you add Mikal Bridges, who can pick up
some slack,
a top defensive matchup alongside OG Anunoby, and Dante DiVincenzo is able to do that too, and Josh Hart. So
so
you have no shortage. Yeah, you have no shortage of guys who can pick up the slack if Brunson is tired. So I don't think so.
Yeah, but the other thing with him is just Randall coming back, because I don't think it hurt him too much, but I think Randall will have the ball in his hands a lot. It's kind of how he has in the past. But it was just kind of weird, just how they're built. All he has to do is kind of just run the offense a little bit, and they'll have their guys set. But I just couldn't put him any higher.
Yeah, I really tried.
Now, if you tell me he's like, I have more top 3 thoughts with him than Ja a little bit, but that might just be because we had a year without Ja, and just Brunson was so good last year.
Yeah, I mean, I said the same thing going into last year. Like, how much longer can he keep up this pace? How much longer can he keep doing what he's doing? And he far and away exceeded that going into last season, where he was in 5th for the MVP last season.
Do you think he gets? I mean, I know he'll get better, but is there another Big Joe that he can have?
I mean, if I'm speaking just from my perspective, I don't see how. I don't see how at this point, because but also I didn't project him, taking the leap he took last year. I just don't know what it would look like at this point, because I feel like last year kind of encapsulated it all, at least all that I believe he's capable of.
I don't want to say he's peaked, but he kind of last year was probably close to the best you'll see, and it was really good. So, like I said, I don't know what better he could do besides defense, and you don't have to rely on him for defense really at all now.
Yeah, I mean, also when you add Mikal Bridges, you add another offensive weapon, so it's like he doesn't even have to take on that much of an offensive load. You'll have Julius Randle back, and although you can make knocks against Julius Randle for how he operates offensively, Julius Randle gets buckets. Julius Randle gets buckets at the end of the day. He's going to average 20 points. So that takes another load off Jalen Brunson, as long as he stays healthy, as long as Julius Randle stays healthy as well. So I just don't see how. Jalen Brunson can, really go up another level in a big way, at least at this point, even more. I don't see how.
Yeah, I agree. Like I said, I think it'll be better. Could be better. The numbers might regress a little bit with Randall and Mikal coming in, or Randall coming back. But like you said, with them, it is the interior. Because Isaiah Hartenstein was a big reason for them, especially in the playoffs, for them winning.
Yeah.
Kind of saw that with Philadelphia. Kind of they killed Philadelphia on rebounds. Losing him, I know you still have Mitchell Robinson, but I want to say the backup is Precious. I think they didn't bring anybody else in.
That's right.
So he's another guy that kind of does use the pick and roll a lot, but they have multiple guys that can kind of run pick and roll.
Yeah. Jalen Brunson was extremely efficient last season too, I'll say, before I close on him. Was pretty much almost a 50-40-90 guy. Shot 40% from 3 on 7 attempts, which is something that he'd never done in his career before up until this point. So I don't know how replicable that is going forward for him, especially at the pace where he's averaging almost 30 points a game. But who knows? Who knows? We could be, or at least I could be proven wrong again.
Yeah.
I do expect the Knicks to be at the top of the Eastern Conference, though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
As long as Brunson's healthy, they will be. Even if he does miss some time, yeah, it should.
Yeah. I've got Curry at 3.
Yep.
Curry at 3. Yeah, that was pretty telegraphed at this point. I had Jalen Brunson over him if we were going pre-Olympics.
I was really wondering if you did, and I didn't take Olympics into it. Even if I did, him at 3 would be validated, but I was back and forth on Curry and Brunson a little bit.
Yeah, it is kind of, I don't like saying that we needed a reminder of who Steph Curry was, and the Olympics served as that, because at this point, if you've been watching for the past 10 years, you know who he is, you know how stamped he is.
We both had him at 1 last year too, I think.
We did. Yeah, we both had him at 1 going into last season. But I think it was like that Warriors season last season where they really struggled in a lot of ways. Yeah. And Steph didn't shoot like as good as he has in the past. He still shot 41% from 3 on 12 attempts. But the year before, he shot like 45, or at least 43, I think. And his counting stats were down 26, 5, and 5 last year. But yeah, that whole Warriors team last year just kind of struggled. Yeah. It was a weird season.
I think I don't know if I can say he'd have a better year than last year, but I know we'll get into it later in the offseason. The Warriors did a lot of good things, I think, considering, who they lost and like a lot of the rumors and stuff. So I think.
Remind me who they brought in. I know they brought in Buddy Hield and Kyle Anderson. Did they bring in anybody else?
Hield, Anderson. I want to say it's been a few more guys. I just can't remember.
Those are the only 2 that I can recall off the top of my head.
I know we didn't think AirPods would be as good as it was last year.
Right.
I really don't know. I think that might be it. I know they didn't let Clay go and bring in Buddy. I know they brought in Kyle. D'Anthony Melton. They brought in D'Anthony Melton too.
D'Anthony Melton, that's who.
Which he has been in Philadelphia the last 3 years. That could be a really big piece for them if he is healthy. He did deal with back problems all last year, and it was never kind of said what he had. It was just back injury. So if he can come back to kind of how he was, he was one of the better perimeter defenders a few years ago. I wouldn't say one of the better, but he was really good. And he can catch and shoot threes really well too. He was, I think, Philadelphia's main 3-point shooter before, Max kind of came on the scene like that. But yeah, with Curry, I don't know. It was tough.
I think 3 is a good spot for him going into this next season. I think that he probably won't have as good of an NBA season as like Jalen Brunson or John Morant will. I think they'll probably have a better NBA season than him. But I maybe I'm riding the high of the Olympics. Maybe it is a little recency bias. But seeing what we just saw, it's like, man, like how could you put him like lower than like 3? Yeah. On a point guard list at this point after seeing how he just went crazy in the Olympics. But yeah, that Warriors team still sits in a little bit of a weird position for me where I don't believe them to be a serious contender at all at this point.
Yeah, they're not bad enough to get a good pick either.
And you don't see Steph Curry leaving the Warriors still. I don't see that as a possibility. Yeah. So it's kind of like it's kind of a stalemate at this point where like what's next? What's really next for Steph Curry? Because at this point of his career, he's 35 years old. You don't see another giant leap. Maybe he has a better statistical season than he did last year. But you don't see really a way that Steph Curry kind of revolutionizes the way that he's already revolutionized the game.
Yeah.
But I think 3 is a good spot for him, especially right now going into the season. But yeah, he's pretty firmly here. You definitely couldn't bargain him. Like we had him, like we said, going into last season. I didn't even consider him for a second over the guys we had at 1 and 2.
Yeah, I didn't either.
Yeah. Speaking of 1 and 2, who's your number 2?
SGA. Is he not your 2?
See, I bargained with this as well because, obviously based off last season.
Is he your 2? No.
Yeah, Shai's my 2.
Okay.
Shai's my 2. I tried to make a case for a second that Luka could be number 2, but after last season, no, I can't do that.
As big as of Luka MVP guy you've been the last probably 5 years, no.
No, I couldn't do it.
I'll let you talk about SGA. I gotta use the bathroom.
Yeah. So Shea last season, y'all know, 2 free throws coming for Shea Gilgeous-Alexander, free throw merchant. He averaged 11 free throws a game last year, which is pretty crazy. And I said, talking about Shea Gilgeous-Alexander going into last year, if he could average like 4 3-point attempts, his scoring could continue to go up and go up and go up. And it didn't really go up. He still averaged like 30, 31 points. But he averaged 4 threes, and he shot 35%. Once again, on those threes, he shot 35% the year before. But he was 36-6, one of the highest steal guys in the league, one of the best perimeter defenders in the league. Shot 54% from the field, which is pretty crazy, even though a lot of his scoring came from the zones of the mid-range and the rim. Like I said, obviously he gets to the free throw line. I really wanted to make a case, though. If it's just me and y'all talking, I really wanted to make a case because I knew Jacob was going to have him at number 2. I knew Jacob was going to do that, and it really makes me upset that our lists look as similar as they do. But yeah, I couldn't put him over Luka based off the seasons that they had last year. I project, though, if we're projecting, I project Shea Gilgeous-Alexander to be the number 1 point guard going into this next season. I think he'll have a better season than Luka. I think the Thunder will be better than the Mavericks. And I think that this could be the year where he wins MVP. I think this could be Shea Gilgeous-Alexander's MVP season. He finished second last year. And that was part of the reasoning why I tried to put him number 1. I didn't say that. I should have thought of that at the time. It would have been a stronger argument. I don't know why I'm whispering. But yeah, I know a lot of people don't like Shea Gilgeous-Alexander for the way that he plays. I know that people see him as corny. I get that. The Instagram captions sometimes can be corny. I completely understand. But he's still the guy. He's still going to be at the top. I've just been giving my spiel about Shea Gilgeous-Alexander and how I think he's going to be MVP next season.
How he's going to be what next season?
How he's going to be MVP. Do you have anything you'd like to say to that?
It's curveball coming back in. I wouldn't be surprised. Honestly, wouldn't.
He was second last year.
I won't get too much into it because I know we will have a predictions episode. But yeah, he very well could be. I'm sure you mentioned bringing in Isaiah Hartenstein and Alex Caruso.
I actually haven't mentioned that at all. I've only been talking about Shea.
Okay, well, yeah, I definitely could see that. We had him at 4 last year.
Him at 4, yeah.
Which I thought he was going to lead the league in steals for guards.
I mean, he almost did.
I think him and Fox were like right there with each other, I think.
Total steals, he had more.
Okay. Like you said, the shooting has kind of always been like kind of with a few other guards been the biggest thing. He only attempted 3.5 threes last year.
Well, I was telling them while you were gone, that's double what he did the year before.
Yeah, I think we talked about that the year before. He averaged almost 30 on like 1 3.
Yeah.
Close to. And he averaged 30 on even 3 attempts, almost 4.
Yeah.
But yeah. Could you – I don't think there's a case for him at 1. But if Luka just wasn't Luka, then there could be a case.
I think if the Thunder had beaten the Mavericks in the playoffs, I think that he could have been number 1. I think that he might have been number 1.
Really?
But Luka dominated that series. Even though he didn't score very much, they made very clear that they weren't going to let Luka and Kyrie kill them with their scoring. Luka made the right plays throughout that entire series, though. And defensively, although Shea had his games where he still got his points, you could tell he was uncomfortable in that series to the point where he wasn't able to control the game the way that Luka did. So I think that was the, deciding factor on why Luka is 1 and Shea is 2 for me.
Yeah, I can agree with that.
Yeah.
I think those are the 1 and 2. I think after that it's kind of you want to project a little bit. Sure. You if you want to project with the other guys a little bit, you could. But I think those are for sure the 1 and 2.
If those 2 guys, I'll say this: if those 2 guys aren't both first team All NBA this next season, either they got hurt or somebody had an incredible season that we didn't foresee.
Yeah, because it is positionless now.
Yeah.
So there could be a way where only one of them makes it, but like you said, it's got to be something weird to happen, injury or somebody just on the scene like that.
Or the Mavs just like missed the playoffs again, like they did 2 years ago.
Yeah, just tank at the end when it's already too late.
Yeah, Luka counting stats 34, 9, and 10, and I want y'all to really gauge how crazy this is. Luka, we've talked about like Luka's not a great 3-point shooter. Luka shot 38% from three last season on 11 attempts.
Yeah.
That is insane for Luka Doncic. That's like I can't even say that. But that puts him up there in serious conversation with Jokic as the best player in the world, in my opinion. And Giannis. I still think Giannis is in that conversation too. You don't think so?
We'll get there another day.
Okay.
Maybe. Yeah. No, Giannis. I think there's 4 guys that.
Are you gonna throw Joel in there?
Huh?
Are you gonna throw Joel in there?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
There's 4 guys. I think that you could. Yeah.
I respect it.
Yeah. Even when hurt, he still can average 35. But another day.
Another day. Another time.
Another day.
But yeah, Luka last season, obviously we know the Mavericks going to the finals, him being the catalyst to pretty much all of it. Kind of really helped Kyrie have his best season in a long time too.
Kind of like a bounce back, yeah.
Yeah, taking a lot of pressure off him.
Yeah, I wouldn't say bounce back, but yeah, like you said, it's been a while since we kind of saw Kyrie like this.
Luka also made guys like Derek Jones and PJ Washington in the playoffs look like they could be like all-stars.
Yeah.
He helped Derek Lively have a very good rookie year, helped Daniel Gafford have a really good second half of the season. And I don't want to say all of that falls on Luka, but so much of it does, putting those guys in the right position. He's top 3 smartest player in the league. He has the skill to back it up at this point. He has the shooting to back it up at this point. Defensively, even at points last season, he was better than he has ever been.
Yeah.
Especially in the playoffs, which he's been so maligned for up until this point. But he had moments, especially in that OKC series and in that Clippers series, where he took the challenge and really dug in. They were down 2-1 in that Clippers series. And he had a pivotal game 4 where he clamped and he had like a 35-point triple-double, which turned the tide of that series, which I think was so big for the rest of their run in the playoffs. And I don't think should go unnoticed. But yeah, Luka's going to be number 1. Although I said, yeah, I think Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is probably at least on August 18th or 19th is the date today. I think Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is going to be my MVP frontrunner going into the next season. So I think he'll take over the number 1 position.
Do you think Shai's closer to 1 than he is 3?
Yes, for sure. 100% for sure. Yeah. I mean, he was 4 on our list going into last season, but he's just continued to get better and better and better. And even though his team has continued to get better too, the improvement that he shows individually is just so apparent. It's so apparent. So yeah, I definitely think he's closer to 1. Wouldn't you say?
Yeah, I would. Yeah. I think that's kind of 1 is safe for Luka, but if SGA kind of made a real conversation for it, I would not be surprised. I know I've been high on him for a little bit. I mean, we both have been high on him, but yeah, I agree with what you're saying.
Yeah, talking about point guards, and I think Shai Gilgeous-Alexander's career arc is still so interesting to me. Where he credits a lot of it to Chris Paul and Chris Paul's time in OKC, even though it was just 1 year. He credits a lot of his development to his time playing with Chris Paul, and I think that's so cool. Shout out to the point guard, Chris Paul. He's never been on one of these lists that we've done, but he has a chance to do big things in San Antonio with Vic Wemby.
Oh yeah, the amount of things that would be so different if Doc Rivers hasn't been a coach.
Man, you make him out like he's like
Shai. Look, Shai could be that guard the Clippers been looking for years.
Oh, man.
So it's a lot, but yeah.
I hate to break it to you, but the Clippers are making that trade regardless.
Yeah, I know.
They were sending whoever they could for Paul George.
Definitely, but it worked out. So
definitely worked out for OKC.
Yeah, it worked out for OKC. Yeah,
for sure. I guess before we close talking about the state of OKC, I think we should touch on that just a touch more. I know we'll touch on it more in Western Conference standings, but it is going to be interesting to see the offensive production of everybody on that team, because obviously J-Dove's going to have the ball in his hands some. Chet is going to, get his. Hartenstein will get offensive rebounds and, putbacks and stuff. I'm interested to see those two play together. Interested to see Shai and Ihart and see how that.
Are they starting together or just have stints together?
See, the way that I project Isaiah Hartenstein to start. I think so.
Do you think OKC has the best roster?
Yes. I think so. I think well. I think in totality, yes. I think if we're still talking just like 1 through 6, I think it's Boston.
Yeah, I can say that. But I think in general, yeah, I think OKC, yeah.
But yeah, if we're talking like 1 through 12, yes, OKC for sure.
I kind of want to see how it's kind of weird. They're going to be a really good defensive team, but still could be a really good offensive team.
Because they were last year.
Because bringing in Caruso and you have Dort, if they keep Dort, I'm sure they will. And I know I don't think we did ever talk about it. I did clown that trade a little bit, but I'm not really it's not as bad as a lot of people said it was.
You clowned it on like the Bulls side for getting
Bulls side, yeah. The Bulls side, yeah. But I don't think because they could have definitely got more from Caruso trade.
You would think.
But I mean, if they are that high on Giddey as him being the one, then go for it. But yeah, with OKC, so you got the start line would be SGA. Would it be Caruso?
I don't think so. I think Caruso comes off the bench. I think it's SGA, Dort, J-Dub, Chet, and Ihart.
Okay, so that means the Jalen Williams is the backup 4, maybe 5, kind of back and forth.
Yeah, I think so. Still at this point.
I know he was last year, but yeah.
Yeah, and I don't think that starting lineup is like set in stone. I think it'll be like a matchup based thing. But I think if they're playing teams like the Timberwolves, they're playing like the Nuggets, like you need to have Isaiah Hartenstein on the floor to bang Jokic and Karl-Anthony Towns and put up like a solid fight.
Yeah, I agree with that.
And let Chet roam a little bit.
Yeah, I think that's another big reason they brought him in. Because I know they paid him what? Was it a 3-year 55 or more? I might be way more.
I must say, I think it was like 380 something.
It might have been. It's been a while since free agency happened.
Isn't it weird that there's still like 2 more months before the season and like so many more moves could get done?
I think most moves are done with the but yeah, outside of trades, because I know we did have the Dame trade last year, like a week before the season, maybe 2.
Yeah, it was like right before training camp.
I think free agent wise, mostly everybody's signed except there are a few names, but I know a lot of teams didn't have cap space as it was, so it's going to be a lot of minimum signings, like we saw with Gary Trent going to Milwaukee.
Yeah, I think so too. Yeah, it was 3 years, $87 million, by the way, for Isaiah Hartenstein.
I know I got 50. It might have been his last one.
I was about to say, if they got him for $355, like somebody call the league office. This is not fair.
Yeah, I know we didn't talk about it at all. Do you think they had the best offseason?
OKC, it's top 3 for sure off the top of my head. I think the Sixers did have a top 3 offseason. I think
I think Philly had one and was the number 1, and I could be a little bit biased, but from what they did and didn't give up picks, but the same with OKC, they didn't give up any picks, and they have, like we said, might have the best roster of 1 through 12.
I'm trying to think.
New York.
New York has got to be there.
I think those are the top 3. I think
probably. I tried to Orlando really only got KCP though.
Yeah.
Think about it.
But I like some of the moves Clippers did, but I wouldn't have them towards the top.
No, Clippers are not on my list. Mm-hmm. I think it's Philly, New York, and OKC.
Those are 3. You can really debate any order, but they didn't give up any picks for Caruso. Yeah, they didn't give up any picks for Caruso. That might have been I don't even think they gave up a second rounder.
No, not at all. It was just Caruso for Giddey. So
let's say they are the number 1 seed, close to the deadline. They could just package a bunch of picks and just go get a guy. So I think
Do they even need to at this point though? I know we're babbling. I know we're rambling on at this point, but we'll close here in a second. But do they really need to?
They probably won't unless there's an injury. Unless you just want to go ahead and get. I mean, you really don't need anything unless you want a backup point. But I don't think Casey Wallace is that bad if he is their backup point.
No, not at all. I think a backup could be the thing if they still needed something.
Yeah, I mean, guys
like
like
a 4.
Guys like Isaiah Joe, like they could go get DFS if they really wanted to, but I doubt they will. But yeah, just them bringing in Caruso and Hardenstein. I think those are like the 2 only moves. I know the 2 biggest moves for them, and not giving up any picks. It's like they could
also the Isaiah Joe and Aaron Wiggins contracts were both great.
Yeah,
they were both like 4 years, like $40 million.
Oh yeah, they were still
value.
Yeah. So and I think J-Dub's still on his rookie deal. I think Lou Dort makes the most money on the team. I might be wrong. I think it might have paid Shea.
I'm sure Shea has been paid at this point.
Okay. But yeah, like I said, they might not even have to, but they just have picks, and I don't know if they can keep just drafting young guys and sitting them. I think they drafted Nikola Topic.
Nikola Topic, yep.
Yeah, so eventually they could, but I don't know who it would be for, but they could definitely package something.
We'll talk more about it later. We'll talk more about OKC down the line.
Oh yeah.
We'll go ahead and close this episode today. My phone's about to die. If y'all listening, thank y'all for listening to this. Hopefully we'll be back on next week to talk about shooting guards. Expect another interesting list as well. Hopefully not as many duplicates as we had this time. That was a little disappointing, but in our fashion, of course, it was bound to happen. But yeah, Jacob, do you have anything before we get on out of here today?
That's all I got. Still got a while for the season starts.
Yeah, I know. 2 months away still seems really far.
Unless you're a 2K player, I think you got like 2 weeks.
2K actually looks good this year. On a side note,
in
my opinion, it looks better.
I haven't watched anything about it. I don't want to. You know how I feel about it. I hate it. I'm gonna buy it.
You're getting the game.
I hate it. I'm gonna regret buying it, but I'm gonna buy it. So
yeah. Anyways, though, we'll close for today. We'll hopefully see y'all next week, and peace out, everybody.
Yeah.